In this video, I'm going to be talking about tensions and conflicts we face while trying to conceive and how we overcame them. My name is Henry Kumba and you're welcome to my YouTube channel. Conflicts and tensions are bound to happen in any relationship, whether work related, business, or even in marriages, right? But what really matters is how you're able to navigate and turn these experiences to your favor and grow and mature through them. That is what really matters. Like for my wife and I, the kind of tensions and conflicts we faced while we're trying to conceive were kind of like a defining moment, one of the defining moments in our marriage. It actually helped us grow. We matured. It increased the level of our being comfortable with the other person. You know, in the sense that you could tell what the other person was thinking about a particular issue, even without speaking it. There are times when the tensions were so palpable, you know, even without speaking, you just know that there was tension in the air, you know, and pretty much some of these tensions come from an article you may have read, something somebody has said, something you heard on TV. You know, these conflicts, they just happen, and sometimes even misunderstanding, you know, what the other person is thinking, or misinterpreting what the other person meant by their actions or by their words, and these tensions bound to happen. But then one thing I'm going to share with you in this video is how we're able to overcome, and how these things kind of like shaped us and made us, give us the resilience and the strength, you know, to forge on despite against all odds, and even while we're waiting and trying to conceive for the number of years that we did. Number one was sexual stress. You know, when we got married, we couldn't take our hands off each other. You know, we were getting it in the morning, afternoon, everywhere, you know, at every point in time. We're just into each other, you know, like that. But after a number of years, you know, there was a time when let's try to make babies was a major turn on. It was a major turn on. You know, each time the other person or any of us says let's make babies, you know, it was a turn on. You just get into the mood, you know, almost like instantly. But after a number of years of trying, it was something you didn't even want to hear anymore. You know, you didn't even want to hear, about that anymore, and it kind of like put stress on our sexual life. You know, you just, sometimes you don't even want to try. You don't want to try at all because of the number of disappointments, because of, you know, the times, you know, trying, and pretty much sex became um it was more clinical, I should say, because I mean the fun of it was kind of like snuffed out because the end result we were looking forward to wasn't forthcoming, and so the fun in it were kind of like snuffed out. But one thing we were able to do in the end was, you know, we took back our sex life. You know, we were able to, you know, navigate and work things and win things over again. And so it wasn't all about trying to make babies. Sex for us was no longer about trying to make babies, but we brought back the enjoyment component of it, and we're pretty much able to overcome sexual stress on that. And then the second thing again is disagreeing on who to tell. Disagreeing on who to tell, you know, who to make your who we're going to make part of our support structure. You know, who were we going to tell? We disagreed on that, and then that caused stress. You know, you just feel, okay, there's this person, I think I should let this person know because they have shown considerable amount of concern for the fact that they know we're trying for babies and we're not here. So, but then deciding who to tell, because one thing we're telling people about your trying to conceive journey is that pretty much some people just stop showing concern the moment you bring them into the full picture of what you're going through, and that can put a stress on you because you're like, has this person just added you to a catalog of other stories they've heard? Or I mean, what could they be saying? Because for some we told, you know, they asked and we did tell them because of the level of trust, you know, we had for them, respect and all. We did tell them about it, and pretty much after they heard about it, that was the last, you know, they ever inquired or to ask how was our journey anymore. And he gave us this kind of thinking that perhaps they were just asking, wanting to know, wanting to just have a picture of it, because they never really came back to give us the kind of support we were looking out for. And that did cause stress, because when you think about them, you're like, okay, this person knows, and since then, has he asked again? Has he come around? Has he or she even cared to know what we're doing and all? And so that's the risk of telling people. And so we risked that. For some, they came back positive, but all we did with that was that we were able to just kind of like for those who came back, and gave us the kind of support we were looking for, we took them. For those who didn't, we pretty much let it go. Give or take, we're not losing anything. We're still focused on trying to conceive, and that was our major goal. Number 3 is disagreeing on when to seek help. Yeah, disagreeing on when to seek help. We're married for 2 years, right? And it's pretty much in the second year, my wife was on me to say, let's go seek help. But I wanted to wait. I knew, I had this feeling inside me that somehow that we were going to get pregnant. It was only a matter of time, so there was no need to panic. But for her, 2 years was a very long time, and I'm glad I listened to her when I did, because it took us another 4 years, 4 years before we finally achieved pregnancy. And if I hadn't listened then, we probably still would be on the journey now. So I did listen. So we had that tension, because she wanted us to approach a medical facility, I wanted us to wait a little longer. And so we had this tension, let's go get help. And of course, for fertility treatments, one partner alone cannot approach a medical facility. It has to be both of you, because the investigations are done with both people. And so we pretty much didn't agree on that immediately, and it caused some level of tension. However, when I finally did agree, she was already set, and so we just approached and we proceeded, and we went through the investigations and all whatnot. And then for some other couple in this regard, there's also the fear of separation. Why I say some other couple? Because we didn't have that. At no point did any of us think, okay, the other person would leave me and all. One thing we did while waiting, while trying to conceive, was that we kept assuring ourselves of our love. We never let the other person think we thought of them less, or we thought less of our marriage because we're yet to achieve pregnancy. But for some other couple, this is one stress, this is one tension that they face, the fear of separation, the fear of, especially when you finally find out, okay, the other person is actually the one with the medical issue, and that's the reason why pregnancy has not happened. And so they live with that fear, but we didn't have that fear at all. And so I just thought I should put that in, because it's one of the tensions that couples who are trying to conceive face, because you're afraid the other person might just up and leave, and that could cause a lot of tension, because you could be reading their body language wrong. Anything they do, you read meaning into it, and it can just put you off at many times. But for us, there was the fear of resentment. There was resentment, especially for me. I would say for me, I had this resentment because when we started out initially, the kind of tests that I was subjected to were not comfortable. They were not convenient at all, especially the sperm analysis test, where you need to just go to a room, jerk off in a bottle, and bring the test. And sometimes you're there waiting with your sample in hand, and the lab attendants are just kind of like ignoring you, and you're there just holding it. You're wondering if you're holding it right, if the temperature in your hands are going to tamper with the results and all. And one thing that even increased my level of resentment with those tests were the fact that there are times when the medical facility we went to, right, there are times when you did the tests, the results came out, and the doctor takes the result and asks, did you do this test in this hospital? I don't understand. I can't tell the result, what is this I'm seeing and all. And it's like you went to forge a result and bring in. Each time I had to go do those tests, I was angry with myself. I was angry with everything around me and all. But in the end, I just kind of like, how I was able to cope with that was that I looked at my wife, I looked at the whole situation and circumstance, and I thought to myself, this isn't anybody's making. Okay, so I can't chalk it up to anybody. I can't blame anybody for being responsible for whatever it is that I had to do. So rather, if I'm to be angry with anybody at all, it will be with the system. Like you run a test and they tell you, go do this test again and let's compare results. You bring the results and they are as bewildered as you are, and also you can't even read the results for yourself. You need a professional interpretation, and the professional who is supposed to interpret that result is like sounding as confused as you are, and that increased my level of resentment. And then another thing again is the financial strain. Fertility treatments are expensive. Yes, they're expensive, and that caused stress because you had to shelve some of our plans that involve finances because you're going through treatment, and that caused stress because like you're putting your life, a certain portion, a large portion actually of your life on hold because you're undergoing treatment, for fertility, and it's kind of like expensive because you're pulling in resources, you're pulling in monies from everywhere, and if you don't have a sound financial plan, whereby well, for us there wasn't even a budget. We didn't even have a budget to say, okay, this is how much we're spending. We're actually spending as the monies came. We didn't budget and say, okay, we're going to have this. No, we're pulling from our savings, we're pulling from monies we're earning, here and there. And so it puts financial strain, and sometimes you don't want to talk about finances because they look a little bit messy. Who is paying for what, who has to pay for what, the adjustments that we needed to make and all. And so that caused financial strain, a stress, a tension on our marriage. And another thing again is that another thing again was the difference in treatment choices, right? The difference in treatment choices. I was built to do a surgery, right? And I was willing to go for it. But my wife thought we should seek a second opinion. And I just wanted to get this done and let's move on. But she was insistent that we get a second opinion. But I believe the medical team when they examined me and were like, okay, you need to do a certain corrective surgery and all. And she said, no, we're not doing any surgery. But I thought this was what you wanted, and we've approached the medical clinic and a facility, and they've said this is the solution. How come you don't want us to do this anymore? And she kept insisting for us to get a second opinion, and I'm glad we did, because in the end I didn't have to do any surgery. None of us had to do any surgery for that matter. And so we kind of like moved. But then it was kind of like a stress, initially. Why doesn't she not want me to do the surgery and all? And so we're able to navigate and cope with that, pretty well. But one thing that helped us cope through these conflicts that I've mentioned, some of the things that helped us cope through these conflicts that I've mentioned was, number one, communication. We talked about this. We talked about things whenever they arose, whenever we had concern, whenever we had fears, whenever we had doubts, whenever we were not so sure of the other person. We talked about it. And we pretty much talked about the fertility journey, how far we've come, how we feel about the whole process, what would be a win for us, what we would consider a win. We talked about them, and they really, really helped us in that process, and we're glad. I'm glad we did communicate. We talked about fertility, but we didn't let fertility be the main topic of our discussion each time we start to communicate. No, we talked about it, but we didn't talk about it all the time and too often. All right, we measured it pretty much, talked about it, and we kind of like moved on. And so that really helped. And another thing we did was to connect in other ways. We took up new hobbies. I learned one or two trades. My wife too, learned one or two things. And we kind of like connected in other ways, talked about our single lives, talked about marriage. We had that fun time, that couple moment. We never let go of that moment at all. So we all did that. And then we allowed room for differences. Now this is very, very important, because sometimes you read the other person's body language and you think they don't care as much or they are not showing some enough commitment to a particular thing as they ought to, you know. And so we didn't really. Okay, let me give you an instance, right? When I was giving medication to take, you know, there are times when I kind of like skipped. But my wife wanted me to be meticulous, you know, about it. If they said 2 o'clock, take it for 2. Sometimes I wait, take it by 3. So, you know, and all. And this was really getting on her nerves. And she was like thinking I wasn't so serious about the treatment at all. But for me, I mean, it's 3 times a day. And so I'll take it 3 times a day and all. And so we had that. And so body language sometimes, you know, kind of like could set you off and make you. So what we did was that we allowed room for difference. There's a level of tolerance everybody has, okay, and so we did take that into consideration as well. And so one other thing we did was that we had a long and short-term plan for our finances, treatment choices, and everything. We sat down and we did a plan. Okay, at this phase, this is what we expect, and this is how we're going to react, and these are adjustments we need to make. And so we made those adjustments, and they actually helped us in coping with all the stresses, and in the end we turned out better for it. And so these stresses are everywhere. Like I said earlier, these stresses are everywhere. These tensions, you know, sources of tensions and conflicts are everywhere. It could be from what the other person said, how they reacted, what you read, what you heard someone say, and all. They are everywhere. But one thing that I know is that being able to cope with them takes both of you. It cannot be on one person alone. It wasn't only on my shoulders. It wasn't only on my wife's shoulders. We were both in for it. And one thing that it helped us do was that we matured. We grew together through these experiences. And so with these tensions I've shared, you know, maybe there's something else you did different from what I've just outlined. Please let me know in the comment section. And if you've not yet subscribed, please hit the subscribe button and also turn on the notification bell so that each time I post a video, you will know about it and quickly rush there to watch. Thank you so much. And like I always say at the end of my videos, miracles take a little while, and you are not alone. From me, it's bye-bye.